friends, my dear masters and my dear gods, welcome to this edition of magnificent spiritual wisdom from Harold Percival through his book Thinking and Destiny. Harold Percival has created a groundbreaking book that proves that our thoughts have a direct impact on our future and the world around us. It shows us how to harness the knowledge for joyful and effective living. I am S.K. Rajan here, Vice Chairman, Indian Federation of Spiritual Scientists, accompanied by my life partner, Brahma Vidvarishta, Girija Rajan, and we take pleasure in introducing to the spiritual wisdom which has been offered to us by Harold Percival. This book has created records, and our beloved founder and enlightened Buddha, Brahmarshi Pitamaha Patriji, hesitates in calling it nothing less than a book of the century. During this edition, today, we introduce you and give you the gems of Harold Percival on a topic which is having a wide-ranging influence and significance these days in view of the crisis that mankind is going through. And the subject matter is death and dying. So I will be reading through the book, in the course of which we will have expert comments and the excerpts of the book from Girija Rajan too. Death is the fifth class of psychic destiny and is especially marking the end of the period during which the embodied doer works through the four senses in the physical world. The time of death had been determined at the end of the previous life. Usually, the place and the manner of death are also decided by the thoughts in the previous life. Fear of death is caused by a feeling of the doer that it has not earned its conscious immortality, and it dreads its ignorance and the unknown. There are other causes for the fear of death. The doer has been through the experience of death so often that it fears the experience because it means a break in the continuity of life, a parting from things it has held dear, and the uncertainty of the future. The doer feels that there is to be an accounting, something that it must pass through.
It's a very great subject, this death, that there is the fact that there is no death. That is what we have to understand. And our great master Percival has given it very vividly, that how and why we pass through death so often. Because the doer in the body is still having the uncertainty and the ignorance it holds to itself. That is why it has to pass through the fifth class of destiny, that is the karma, that the doer has to go through on this life on this earth. So it is very well explained that until the doer gets full knowledge and he is fearless about death, then he need not again go through birth as well as death. Both can be avoided and he can go into other permanent realms, permanent worlds, he can pass on. So it is very clear that nothing is annihilated or extinguished, nothing is destroyed here in death. That is what he says. The body may come to an end, but the physical body. But the other subtle parts with which we live, they go on, they have to live on, they move on. That is what he says. So there is no, if we get this knowledge, then definitely we will have no fear of death. I think every person who lives on this earth has to come to a point, at one point or the other in his lifetime on this earth, has to face the fear of death and understand it completely so that he can come out of it. Here in the Pyramid Spiritual Society's movement, the first lesson that is taken for all the students is the subject called no death. That is the very first lesson that we learn. Because from that starting point, if you start, then you will understand spirituality far better. So we all come here and live. Yes, we are attached to so many things, so many people. We get attached. But as we come many times, we understand that the physical body is not going to be a permanent one. This life on earth is not going to be a continuous one in this physical body. But life otherwise, in other realms, the doer undergoes is going to be permanent one. So the doer, the Atman, lives on forever. It is neither created nor can be destroyed. That is what Bhagavad Gita says. So these are the lessons that is taught in the Pyramid Spiritual Society's movement, where in the very first class itself. So with that understanding that there is no death, and we have to explore why we were fearing death so much, why there is so much ignorance about it, and people fear even to say the word death. That is what is existing now. So all those impressions have to be removed and fresh understanding has to dawn in the minds of each and everyone. That is a real task of spirituality. That is a subject that is dealt in spirituality. Spirituality means it is the science of spiritual science. That is about the spirit. So we have to understand all these things in order to come out of the unwanted fear that dwells in us. Only the ignorance can be replaced only by knowledge. So we have to go through so many things, we have to undergo so many experiences, and then we'll come to a mature state where we can understand these things very easily, especially the subject that there is no death. Death happens only to the physical system. Then the enlivening, the force or the energy, knowledge and consciousness entity that was residing in the body passes on to other realms. That's what we come to know and we understand. So immediately we come out of the fear of death. So very vividly explained by Mr. Percival and also explained by Brahmarshi Pitamhar Patriji to all of us. So this is a very great subject and we have to understand this. Then we will not be worried, we will not think of death as a dreadful experience. We will pass through it very easily because life is there even after the body is removed, our body is decayed. Even afterwards we have to live on. We will live. That is what is the truth. So we have to understand the truth one day or the other.
I would go on to add and supplement what Madam has said. If we read the books, spiritual books, authored by very great spiritual masters including Osho, we can understand that there are a lot of fears once we are born on this earth. It could be fear of illness, it could be fear of losing a child, it could be fear of losing a job. So many fears are there. But these masters have all agreed on one principle and one statement, that among all these, the fear of death occupies the highest place, and invariably every person has that fear as long as he doesn't know what death is. So the only way to remove the fear of death and thereby remove every other fear that can happen on this earth is by knowing more and more about death, and not only about death but also about afterlife. So life after death is a very interesting subject, and if everyone tries to know it, they would no longer have any fear of death. So I continue the reading. Dying is the withdrawal or rolling up of the three inner bodies or masses from the extremities toward the heart. As they recede, rigor mortis sets in. The regions which they leave become cold and there is no feeling in them. Then these masses hover or flutter over the heart and puff themselves out of the mouth with the last breath, causing a slight gurgle or rattle in the throat. With them go the breath form and the doer, which is the cause of the rolling up of the inner bodies. They hover over the physical body like a bird, a cloud, or a globe, or they may stand in human form beside or above the body for a while. Usually, the doer does not see its body or anything else. If death has not yet taken place, there is a slight line or ray or cord that connects these finer inner bodies with the heart or some other part. While this connection remains, it is possible for these finer bodies and the doer with the breath form to re-enter the body. There is no actual death until this connection is broken. The connection is broken when the breath form leaves. It leaves when the doer desires, consents, or wills to die. The doer that is attached to life at first refuses to desire to die, but when it knows by the light of the intelligence that it is useless to cling to the body, it wills, and death is instantaneous.
Now we have come to know about what exactly happens during death. The finer bodies, they move on, and the gross physical body remains here without any activity, because the enlivening Atman, or the entity that was occupying and activating the physical body, has gone away. In fact, every day we almost do this in our sleep, because in sleep also there is an out of body experience, out of the physical body experience, that we call as out of body experience, OBEs. So in sleep what happens? The physical body remains in rest, whereas the subtle bodies, they come out of the physical body, but they are connected through something called as the silver cord. There is a connectivity between the gross physical body and the subtle other bodies. So the body of man is not the physical body alone. We should come to the understanding that it is made up of 7 bodies, including the gross physical body. There are 6 other subtle bodies. So with that, the whole, excepting 3 bodies remaining here, other entities, other bodies, they move on to the other worlds during death. So we have these outer body experiences during sleep, during meditation. Many have experienced conscious out of body astral travels, and during the period when anesthesia is being administered to a person, then the subtle bodies come out of the physical body, and so that they will not feel the pain that is going to happen due to an operation or something that is being conducted on the physical body. So during anesthesia, during meditation, during sleep, we have out of body experiences. Death is also an out of body experience, but death is a permanent out of body experience, whereas the other three are temporary out of body experiences, because the silver cord is still intact. It is not severed from the physical body. That is why we come back in sleep, and when we are administered anesthesia and in meditation, we get into the physical body. So, the subtle bodies, they get into the physical body, and again life starts. Whereas for during death, it is severed, it is cut off, and it is separated. So, the physical body and two other bodies get separated, and other bodies, they go away from there and they move on until they get another body. Another physical body is given to them. That is decided at the time of death, and how long that physical body has to remain on this earth plane, even that is decided at the time of death of a person. So these are all things that we should understand. Many out of body experiences during meditation will definitely help us to get over the fear of death. So we can come out of it very easily, come out of our body at the time of death. So death will no longer be a traumatic experience, rather it will be a pleasant experience. So we can make it pleasant or remorseful or a difficult experience according to our understanding. So Patriji always quotes all these things whenever a person, when we hear about a master or somebody dies, Patriji always tells us that it is only for a time period that the person is separated from the physical body. Again he will come back into the physical body. So there is no cause of lamentation there. So there is no fear also. So we should do as much as possible meditation in which we will have more of astral travels, out of body experiences, so that this fear can be overcome. This fear of death can be overcome. As Mr. Rajan has quoted, many other fears are based on the fear of losing the body. So losing something always gives a suspicion. There is a question mark about the future. So if we understand fully, then there will not be any fear or anxiety about future. For that we should come to know about past lives. That will happen only during meditation. So in meditation we can have many out of body experiences. It is possible for everyone if we can gather enough energy and conserve enough energy for those experiences. Definitely one will have all those experiences. Then with those experiences only we can come out of the fear of death, definitely.
The time taken to reach the decision to die is not measured by the standard of external time. According to that, death is always instantaneous. At death, the four senses and the breath form and the doer leave and are separated from the flesh body. The four senses remain with the breath form, which usually leaves the three inner bodies. These remain with the physical body, and in none of them is there seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, or feeling. Nothing that may be done to the flesh body or to the finer bodies can be felt in any way by the doer, the only entity that can feel.
That is, after death, what happens? That clearly has been explained by Percival. So, the flesh body is separated from the subtle bodies. So, we don't have any feelings. We don't have any of those sense organs which will otherwise would have been functioning during our life on this earth in the physical body. We would have felt everything through the physical body, but now the physical body is not there, no more is there. So we have to feel only through our subtle bodies. So all these are withdrawn and they go away. They are all removed from the physical body, and physical body is known as a corpse. So it cannot move by itself, it cannot hear, it cannot taste, it cannot see, or nor it can smell. Even no feelings will be there, no desire will be there. So nothing is there. So it is permanently, it is taken away and are separated, and we move on. We, the triune self, moves on to other realms, and then we try to come back again on this earth for another life with another new body, so that we will have more experience on this earth plane. So life is nothing but a set of experiences that we get, and experience really gives us wisdom. So to acquire wisdom, we have to come here and undergo all the experiences, so that we come to a stage, a mature stage, where we know everything, and at that stage, when everything is complete, all our karmas are worked out, and we come to a stage of a samadhi, means understanding everything. To that extent, if we grow, then definitely there is no need to come back. So we should understand that. So I quote Patriji's words, there is no cause for lamentation at the death of any person, because the person can decide to come back. So he can come back in another body. That is what nature gives us. So there is nothing that is lost in death. Death is an ongoing process, that is through which we pass through in order to move on to other realms, other worlds, other places. So it is not a fixed thing that will happen, and the time of death is not like, it is not according to the time that is prevalent here on this earth. That's what Percival says. Instantaneously we decide to die. There is no such thing as we plan it beforehand. We just think that we should die, so because the body is no more fit to be lived on. So at that time we just pass off, and the silver cord is severed. So this is what happens. So exactly we should know what death is, so that we will come out of the fear of death that is occupying most of the minds of the people on this earth. The humanity here is really engulfed by such fears. So we should come out of all that. It is now time to understand, and then only we can come out of all these fears.
Cremation is the best disposition of the body after death. By burning, the material of the body is soon restored to the elements from which it came, and the three inner bodies or masses are dissipated, and so the magnetic connection between them and the breath form and the remains of the flesh body ceases. The physical atmosphere is also destroyed. But where a body is devoured by birds, fishes, and animals, the three finer bodies are destroyed as soon as the flesh is digested. The radiant, airy, and fluid bodies go with the solid fragments like smoke or a shadow. It is different in life, where the breath form is present and holds the inner bodies intact. Burial and embalming are the worst methods. These customs, bad for the doer and for the community, hold the inner bodies with the flesh body for a long time, namely until the flesh body has decayed. As the physical atmosphere is not destroyed by burial, it is possible for the doer with its breath form to go back to its old haunts. It cannot find them without its physical atmosphere.
So what Percival comes out with the bang is that what do we do with the corpse after death? What exactly should be done? That is what he says. He says authentically that such a body after death has to be burnt, because the three subtle systems that were enlivening along with the physical flesh body, they are no more. So they will be attached to the physical body until it is burnt. The moment the physical body is burnt, they also get separated, they go to their own respective places. Whereas when the body is buried or embalmed, then until the decay happens, the three subtle bodies remain with the physical body, and it will be very, very difficult for them to get out of it, because they start haunting upon all those old memories, and it will be very, very difficult for them, because they don't have any physical body to live on, nor do they have the way to move on to the other worlds, to wherever they have to go. So they stick on here. They do not know where to go. They will never know where to go. So that is why he says the best way to dispose of a body is by burning it. So that is exactly what he says. So, and he tells us why it should not be buried or embalmed or thrown to birds or animals. Some religions also believe in throwing off and giving us food, the physical body, to birds and animals. Even at that time, the fragments that will be remaining out of the flesh body after eaten by some portions eaten by animals and birds, those fragments will be definitely be occupied by these subtle bodies that will remain there and start getting haunted by those old memories. So to avoid that haunting, they have to be released. So in order to do that, the best way is by burning the body. That is what he says.
Death is a friend to the doer. Death frees it from the turmoil, changes, and uncertainties of physical life, so that it may have a rest before it is drawn back for another life on earth. During life, it is well to set the thought upon being conscious at the time of death, and to charge the breath form to remind the doer to be conscious of the passing over and of its identity with its thinker and knower. The doer will not be conscious at the time of death unless this has been impressed upon the breath form by many repetitions during life. The doer ought to be conscious of the light of the intelligence, but unless it was conscious of the presence of the light during life, it will not be conscious of it at death. If it has been conscious of the light during life, and if it is reminded by the breath form of its passing, it will be conscious at the time of its death, and will also be conscious of the light of intelligence. Then it will understand what is before it, and will go through it more easily.
Very well said by Percival. That is, he clearly says that we are not one consciousness, the consciousness is divided into three parts. The doer in the body, the knower and thinker, those two sections of the consciousness, they are somewhere else in other permanent, more brighter realms, more permanent realms. They dwell there. Only the doer comes into the physical body and activates throughout the lifetime the physical body. So at the time of death, the doer has to remember that it is part of the triune self. The thinker and knower are somewhere else, and it is a part of that. That is what is the duty of the doer. But most often people never remember this. The doer never remembers, because it is preoccupied with so many other things in the world, and is more worried that it has to leave the physical body and go away. But the breath form the prana, that will that has to remain the doer in the body, that it is part of those two other forms of consciousness, that is the thinker and the knower part, and it is a triune self, and also the presence of the intelligence, the light of intelligence. There is a light of intelligence that is given to all of us, and that is how we think, that is how we know things. So the light of intelligence is very important to us. So that is also, the presence of that has to be remembered during our lifetimes. So when we live itself, we should know all these things. Otherwise, if we are not conscious of that, we will never be able to know who we are, what we have to do. Nothing we will know. We will be like a blind fool after dying. So to pass on to other realms, to make it easier, our passage more easier, it is better to remember during lifetime itself that the doer part, the thinker and the knower are one consciousness, and divided into three parts, and the other two are remaining somewhere else, they are living somewhere else, whereas the doer alone comes here to activate the physical body. And there is something much more than this triune self, that is the light of intelligence. When we know the presence of light, the light of intelligence, then only we will be able to know it at the time of our, be conscious of it at the time of death, and it will be very, very easy for us to pass on to the other realms. Otherwise, we get stuck up somewhere. That is what he says. Very clearly, Percival has explained how we should live here, what are all the things that we should know, and what we should do and what we should not do. All those things are very well explained in this great book, which is giving this marvelous wisdom to all of us. The Thinking and Destiny is a wonderful book. All should read it, but we are helping people, we are trying to help people to understand at least the major aspects of the book, so that we will know what really we will come to know scientifically, all the factors, and then live on with materialism on one side 50% and spiritualism 50%. That life together makes 100%, and we will move on very successfully. That is how we have to be successful before we complete this lifetime. Let us all come to know all these things, so that we can be conscious, and it will help us in the long run. Before we take up another body or we go to other realms, we have to know this, we have to be conscious. Very easy, it's not very difficult, but we should be aware of all these things. So thank you, friends. We have now completed this episode. So I think this episode will give you food for thought, and you will start thinking about all these things, all these matters. And then, yes, the other things are there in life, no doubt, but this is also very important, because we know that one day or the other the physical body will have to be left out and left behind, and we have to move on to other realms. We know that death is inevitable. That's what we have come to understand. So when such a thing happens, yes, we should know what exactly we should do, what exactly we should be conscious of. So it is better to know it now itself, and when we are alive in this body, it's better to know it. So thank you very much for listening to us patiently, and I hope it will help you to a very great degree. Thanks.
Thank you.